If you find yourself penciling a deal more than once, it's a problem. Online or in-store, Gubagoo's virtual retailing offers a unified experience and ensures a seamless deal every time. Check it out at GUBAGOO.com.
Want to dive deeper into the topics you hear about on Daily Drive? We're offering listeners a special offer, 20% off a 1-year Automotive News digital subscription. That gets you access to all of our news, information, and analysis made for automotive industry leaders like you. Go to autonews.com/Daily Drive promo to redeem. Welcome to this weekend drive edition of Daily Drive for the 4th week of January 2024. I'm Jamie Butters, Executive Editor of Automotive News in Detroit.
And I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today we're breaking down some of the biggest stories in the auto industry from the past week and looking forward to what's in store in days ahead. In a few minutes, we'll preview next week's NADA show with our own Dan Shine.
It's an opportunity for dealers to get in front of folks who are making decisions and express their opinions, whether positive or negative, or get answers to questions they have. So I think it's a valuable FaceTime for dealers.
But first, Jamie, once again, my friend, welcome to Saturday. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good, man. We got a lot to chat about today. So, Stellantis is finally launching its new flexible platform, which will support up to 8 vehicles. Now, Jamie, Stellantis has a lot of brands. Do you think this plug-and-play approach is the best way to cover all the brands? I mean, a Maserati is very different from a Chrysler.
Yeah, it sure is. It's the right idea. It's all going to come down to the execution. In a lot of ways, this harkens back to the old General Motors, where you had a whole, array of brands and the aim of having, a vehicle for every person purchase, right? And so you have a lot of the same engineering, but try to make it fit each brand's place in the market. With EVs, that should be doable, but it's always the tendency, right? You want to put all of your power, all of your battery, all your range, everything good in every vehicle, and then there's not enough distinction between them. And if you try to hold back on something to keep the price down, it often just feels like a lesser vehicle. So it's going to be a real challenge for the brand engineering of it, but it's the right strategy. It all depends on how well they can pull it off.
I agree. I think this is totally all about execution. And speaking of execution, BYD has been executing. I mean, they overtook VW as China's best-selling car brand in 2023. Now, is this, Jamie, a sign of things to come? I mean, BYD has been in the headlines a lot lately and has become the best-selling brand in the world's largest auto market in such a short amount of time. Does this put legacy automakers on notice? I feel like before we know it, BYD's presence will be made here stateside.
There's a lot going on, and it's one of these weird situations where China is really emerging as a threat to the U.S. auto market, in part because of the weakness of China's own auto market. China grew so much, built a lot of factories, built up a lot of local companies to try to compete with the global automakers. And there's a bit of a slowdown in demand, and they've got all this extra capacity. So what are they doing? They're slashing prices, making it really hard on VW, General Motors, BMW, everyone else operating in China. Tesla as well is having a challenge from all these Chinese automakers undercutting on price. And then they still have excess capacity, so they're shipping more overseas. They're exporting to Europe. They're exporting, of course, to Russia and Mexico. And you could totally be right. Within a year or two, sometime this decade, it totally makes sense that BYD will make a run at the U.S. market, probably with vehicles made in Mexico rather than in China. But we'll see how all the tariffs and trade relations work out. But it is definitely a show of strength coming from a market that's feeling a bit of weakness.
I think it's definitely worth keeping your eye on seeing where BYD will be by the end of this year, for sure. This week, we also heard from Anthony Lewandowski, one of the pioneers of self-driving technology. He said this year will be the year of the robot.
We're still 1 or 2 breakthroughs away from being able to just drive everywhere like a person can, right? So my view is that, the AI advancements are actually what's going to make these 2 things, possible. One is like being able to understand the environment. Second is kind of learning from a bunch of logs automatically how other people are going to behave in the situation and figure out what the behavior is.
What's the reality of that, Jamie? After the issue with Cruise in San Francisco, What will it take for these AV companies to fully earn the trust of consumers? Or will there always just be that percentage of skeptics out there who will never fully trust AV technology?
I have a little bit of a different perspective on this. I feel like, we follow this news every day and we're very plugged into the problems that Cruise is having. You talk to most people around the country, they've never heard of Cruise. A lot of them don't even know that there are these problems with robo taxis, that Cruise has had all these troubles in San Francisco. Obviously, local folks there do. But you talk to people in the Midwest or even across the Sun Belt, and until Cruise and Waymo come into their markets, it's really out of sight, out of mind. They think it's a science experiment. It's something that's maybe happening, maybe not. So it might not be as big of a challenge with the public, although certainly what we're seeing with this Cruise story, the challenge is probably going to be with regulators are likely to be, very defensive about letting robotaxis on the road, letting companies that are very aggressive in their growth plans do what they want to do. They're going to feel like they need to protect the consumer, protect the pedestrians, protect everyone else out there until the technology is absolutely proven to be safe.
And Jamie, are there companies like Uber that are pushing back against companies like Cruise and Waymo?
Uber is a funny one because their initial, business thesis was, we'll get these human-driven cars out there, and then we'll replace all the drivers with self-driving technology. They've since kind of gotten rid of the unit that would develop that, but there's still a lot of appeal for a company like Uber or Lyft if they could get cars that would drive themselves. And of course, there's Tesla with its full self, quote unquote, full self-driving technology. The idea there that Elon Musk has really pushed is, hey, you can buy a car with an extra $10,000 or $20,000 worth of technology on it, but you can let it go out and earn money for you when you're not using it and help pay for that technology and then some. So a lot of interesting thinking going on around how people are going to get around in vehicles in the future. And I don't know how it's all going to work out. I have no idea.
Gotcha. Well, coming up, the 2024 NADA show kicks off next week here in Las Vegas. We'll talk about what we expect from this year's show next on Weekend Drive.
Daily Drive is kicking off the new year by reviving an old name in a new format.
We're bringing back a Weekend Drive edition of Daily Drive. Jamie and I will go deeper into the biggest automotive stories of the week.
Every weekend, you'll hear fresh insights, analysis, and what has me running hot, if not overheated. To think that's going to get done in a year, a little over a year, is foolishly optimistic.
That's a little dark, but let's shift to something a little more positive.
You'll also hear from our experts in the newsroom here at Automotive News about the latest industry trends and topics.
EV sales are not declining. That's the narrative we're kind of seeing outside of the industry. They aren't declining, but the pace of growth definitely has slowed.
Come back this weekend for our Weekend Drive edition of Daily Drive.
And of course, tune in every weekday for all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry.
We know 95% of customers complete at least a portion of their vehicle buying journey online, so they expect the deal they create on your website to match exactly what they see in your showroom. If it doesn't, you can lose that customer's trust, risking not only that deal, but also any future opportunities. That's where Gubagoo's virtual retailing steps in. We transform the conventional car buying process into a modern, transparent, and seamless experience. With Gubagoo, you'll be able to access information the customer entered online, such as their favorite vehicles, in-progress deals, and any pending orders when they enter your dealership. And our industry-leading F&I process averages nearly 3 times greater revenue per deal, thanks to our smart menus and bundles. Did we mention that virtual retailing is fully integrated with our premium chat solution? Real-time messaging and live support from our team of specialists brings the engagement of your showroom directly to your website. Don't let disconnected experiences drive customers away. Try virtual retailing by Gubagoo, where seamless meets success. Discover the difference and see why over 8,000 dealers and 20 OEMs trust us at Gubagoo.com. That's Gubagoo.com.
Welcome back to Weekend Drive. I'm Jamie Butters with Kellen Walker. We'll soon be traveling to Las Vegas for the 2024 NADA show, a mix of meetings, mingling, and a few speeches. Dealers come to compare notes on what went well and what didn't in 2023, and to learn from experts and their peers on challenges ahead and how to surmount them. There is concern among many in the industry that high interest rates, costly consumer goods, and expensive window stickers will put a dent in vehicle sales in 2024, even with increased inventory. And EV sales, while not slumping, have slowed at some brands as dealers and some consumers wonder if the industry's push is too much too soon. I spoke about the show with Automotive News senior editor Dan Shine. Dan Shine, welcome back to Daily Drive, or as I should say, Weekend Drive.
Yes, I love the what you've done with the Weekend Drive studio. It looks great.
Well, usually you're on Daily Drive on Fridays talking with folks about F&I or service and parts. But here we are on Saturday. I wanted to ask you about NADA. We're packing up the teams and heading out west again.
Yeah, looking forward to it. A lot of work, but a lot of opportunities to see folks in person, hear what they're thinking about, and find out about the latest kind of trends and tools that are going on in the industry.
Yeah, big show for obviously for vendors to get FaceTime with dealers, but just for dealers to see each other. It's a big thing. Of course, we have at Automotive News, we have our retail forum, and you're you're moderating a panel that's really touches kind of a nerve center for a lot of dealers looking at the EV market.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great discussion. I got a really nice panel, a couple of dealership folks, and Melinda Zabriskie from Experian, who's got a lot of good data, and then Eric Watson from Kia. And so I'm really looking forward to the discussion. I think EVs are interesting. They were quite the buzz. I think, if you go back to NADA probably 2 years ago, it seemed people seemed to be were talking about. And now I think this time around, I think there's, as we've reported recently, a lot of dealers are telling the White House and pump the brakes a little bit here. I don't think we're all quite ready for EVs to take over so soon.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting market because it varies so much by brand and even by product. We've had a front page story about Mercedes having too many, high-end vehicles, $80,000, $100,000 EVs on the lots. But in recent months, Mercedes sales have more than doubled. They've actually kind of moved up the ranks, maybe because they pushed all those vehicles on the dealers. Now they're finding ways to get them on the consumers. But then some of the biggest brands, Tesla has really slowed down, and of course that kind of drags down the whole momentum of the market. But Chevy and Ford aren't seeing the same big growth they were when their new models were first hitting. So it's a lot of push and pull. The Koreans are, they were strong, and then they were weakened by the Inflation Reduction Act. Now they're playing that game a little better. So there's a lot of puts and takes in that EV market.
I think we could have a 2-hour long discussion and not run out of things to say, but it's only going to we're going to compress it all the good information into 30 minutes.
Well, I know EVs will come up at the make meetings. That's where the brand executives, talk to their dealers and in some cases listen to their dealers. It really depends on the health of each brand and what their meetings tend to go like. But that's, such an important part of what happens at this show. It's a, real important interactivity, between the brand executives and their retailers.
Right. It's an opportunity for dealers to get in front of folks who are making decisions and express their opinions, whether positive or negative, or get answers to questions they have. So I think it's a valuable FaceTime for dealers.
Yeah, really important. So one of the other kind of overarching issues I think we'll be asking a lot of folks, dealers, brand executives, and others about is the affordability crisis, or at least a challenge that the industry is facing, if it's not a full-on crisis, kind of exacerbated by high interest rates. What are you hearing about that?
I think, right, there's concern, among dealers, especially in the F&I office, that we're after some really good years of making a lot of money, that maybe 2024 is not going to be that kind of year. But it seems like the dealers always seem to kind of pull a rabbit out of their hat, and they seem to do okay. But yeah, there's concern. They're seeing a lot more cash deals. People bringing the full amount of a car to the deal, and that will cut into some F&I profits. But I think there's hope out there. The Fed kind of signaling that they were going to take a decrease the interest rates a little bit in 2024. So I think it's not full out panic, and that there's some there's a rainbow at the end of the thunderstorm.
Yeah, I think, a lot of, more caution in the industry these days. Everyone's seeing inventory come back, prices coming back down instead of pretty much every vehicle getting sold for MSRP or above. We're starting to see a lot more reasonable pricing. And a lot of headwinds to the demand. I mean, we've talked about not only the higher interest rates and the high prices of vehicles generally, but people with student loans having to start making those payments again. Just a lot of things that are on people's minds. If the Fed does turn around and start cutting interest rates, that will certainly give a little bit of enthusiasm back to the market.
Yeah, I still think people are, they see those sticker prices and they just think, it's not for me. I think a lot of people will get back into the used market, and so that inventory is going up. So I just, but I think, people have a sticker shock for what they're seeing, and like you mentioned, student loans are back, and back in the mix, and so the young buyers are, wondering what they can afford and if they can afford anything.
You mentioned the sticker shock. I remember this was actually quite a few years ago before I even came to Automotive News. I was still at Bloomberg and wrote about the $50,000 minivan. As Chrysler was bringing out the plug-in hybrid Pacifica now, and it used to be a joke to I would say, well, nobody wants to pay $40,000 for a Camry, and I had a $40,000 Camry in my driveway from the press fleet last year, and it was really nice. It was not unfairly priced, but it is remarkable with all the technology how expensive cars are getting these days.
Yeah, there just aren't many. I don't know if there might be one vehicle that's under $20,000 now these days. I don't know. We run charts in F&I in our newsletter all the time about the number of people who are paying $700 or more a month, and how many people, record number, are paying over $1,000 a month for their auto loan payment.
Yeah, for a single vehicle, not for all their family fleet.
No, right, exactly. It's crazy.
It's funny. We are hearing a lot of, brave talk or optimistic talk about $25,000 EVs. That's what Tesla is aiming for. I think Stellantis has talked about that. Hyundai and Kia, I think, have some aims to bring out more affordable EVs, but it's a lot of challenges to getting to that kind of a price range.
There are, and I think even for the consumer, if they get a vehicle that Tesla or whomever it may be gets in that $25,000 range, I think people now are kind of learning. They're seeing the reports about having charging troubles in cold weather cities like Chicago, and there's still the range anxiety out there about how far can I go on this, and I've had fleet cars as well, press fleet cars that are EVs, and have been stuck in one spot where I've got to go plug in before I can return home, and I don't use the heater because it drains the battery too fast. And so I think there's still the consumer out there, I think, is interested, but I think the momentum will be for hybrids. I think are going to gain some momentum here, that maybe this is a happy bridge to full EVs. Maybe we get more hybrids out into the marketplace, and I think consumers might then dip a toe in the water and think that maybe I can do this.
Yeah, hybrids, and for some brands, plug-in hybrids can be an important, like you said, a bridge. Let people get used to charging, but not be so constrained if they are going to run out of battery, and to know they have that gas engine to keep them going.
Yeah, for sure.
Although those are some pretty expensive vehicles too for their size. Yeah. It's definitely a trade-off. All right, before I let you go, of course, it's in Las Vegas. Auto dealers like to have a good time. Are there parties or any big events that you're looking forward to?
There's I always kind of like to see there's a lot of musical acts from my era of 80s and 90s that you really haven't, that you liked them back then and they haven't heard from them in a decade or two. And so there were some people are throwing parties that feature some of these musical acts that are part of my younger days that I'm interested in going to see, and it's always fun. It's always a fun time.
Well, and there's a big kickoff at the Sphere, right, which is a real attraction if you haven't been to Vegas since that was built. I mean, you see it from everywhere.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. I was hoping to go see you too on Wednesday night before then, but I haven't scored a ticket yet because, like EVs, they're priced out of my market. So
Can't hold that against you. Thanks, Dan. Safe travels out to Vegas. See you there. That's all for this weekend drive edition of Daily Drive. I'm Jamie Butters.
And I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News coordinating producer Jake Neer for his help on today's podcast. You can get the latest news on retail, electrification, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com.
Come back on Monday for a conversation with Lincoln President Diane Craig.
We're not where we want to be yet. Even with the record number of consolidations that we had in 2023, and it's going to continue to be our focus in 2024.
If you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.